A decision means, hey, this is it. I am not going to do this anymore, or I will start doing this from now on. A decision is this is how it's going to be going forward. So I teach what I call the result cycle, which is your thoughts lead to your emotions. Your emotions influence your actions. Your consistent actions lead to your habits, and your habits lead to your life results.
Nathan Sweeting empowers individuals to commit to self-mastery, to master their mind, to manage their emotions, and to change their behaviors. He teaches through his own life transformations, from quitting an 18-year smoking addiction to completely transforming his body and his health, as well as getting over a terrible fear of public speaking and then turning it into a career. He's published 2 books, and he teaches several personal development courses at 2 local colleges in the Bahamas where he lives. His favorite people in the world are his wife, Nicole, and his daughter, Nala. And today, he's going to be speaking with us about how you can change your life and achieve self-mastery. So when you take a piece of value from this conversation, all that we ask is you share this show so more people can hear when Nathan has to share about self-mastery. Nathan, it's great to have you on the show, my friend. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Brandon, it's a pleasure to be here. It's so funny. You were one of the few people who pronounced my daughter's name correctly.
Really?
One of the few people.
Well, it's a very pretty name, man. So it's names are very important. So I always say put the extra time into properly pronouncing a name, because there's a Dale Carnegie saying of a name is the most important sounding word in any language. So if you can get a name right, that's respect. So I'm glad to hear that, brother. Thanks for being on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I saw everything that you have to talk about, you've been speaking now since 2017. You've gotten over a fear of public speaking, which I want to talk about how you were able to change some of these behaviors in your life, from smoking to public speaking to all those things. But I have a special place in my heart for the phrase self-mastery, because my book is literally titled Your Guide to Self-Mastery. So a lot of people, though, they hear self-mastery, and I feel like everyone has a different idea of what it means to master the self. So I'm curious, when you think of self-mastery and when you've created your life's work up until this point on self-mastery, what does that phrase mean to you?
For me, I literally have based my entire career, like you said, on self-mastery. Because of my transformations, I attribute all of them to self-mastery. I look at it as having 3 pillars. Self-mastery is learning to manage your thoughts, your emotions, and your behaviors. So it's mind mastery, it's emotional intelligence, and it's behavioral change. It all focuses on you, self-prioritization.
So let me ask you a question on that. So I love the 3-pillar idea. So thoughts, your emotions, and your behaviors. So a lot of people would say that your thoughts lead to how you feel, right? So if you're constantly having thoughts of, I'm not enough, I can't do this, what's next for me, it can generally create feelings of uncertainty. It can create feelings of fear. It can create feelings of things that you don't want to feel. But the 3rd pillar specifically of behaviors, why did you choose behaviors as the 3rd pillar? What's the importance of the behaviors?
Well, so I teach what I call the result cycle, which is your thoughts lead to your emotions. Your emotions influence your actions. Your consistent actions lead to your habits, and your habits lead to your life results. So really, your behaviors, they lead to your end result in life. Whether you are fit or unfit, whether you're successful in life or unsuccessful, whatever it is, your behaviors led to wherever you end up in life. Now, your thoughts and emotions influence that. It's all a one big cycle. So I see a lot. So some persons come to me as a life coach. Some persons come to me, they want to lose 50 pounds, or they want to open a business, or they want to strengthen a relationship, any life area. And it all depends on, okay, what are you actually physically doing? In order for you to lose 50 pounds, your behaviors, you need to form the habit of exercising, the habit of eating properly. So all of these fall into you taking action. We could plan, we could brainstorm, we could think, we could wish, we could dream, but your behavior is the key to your end result, and your mindset influences that.
That's right. That's right. So let me ask you this. So you've got the person now who wants to lose 50 pounds, or they want to start the business. Do you start with the behaviors, or must it begin with the first pillar of thought in order to make those changes?
Yes, so thought is the underlying factor in everything. So even if we want to take health and fitness, you want to lose 50 pounds. I always say there are three parts to your health journey. There's the nutrition. So I'll write you a nutrition plan because I'm a certified health coach as well. So I'll write you a
Cool.
nutrition plan. I'll write you a exercise program, a fitness program. But what I used to do before, I used to give clients a customized fitness program, customized nutrition plan, but they wouldn't necessarily stay consistent with it. Then I realized I was missing out one very important pillar: mindset. So when I give you a plan, now I have to help you develop the mindset to stay consistent, to not procrastinate, to not overthink. Know how to deal with fear, know how to deal with anxiety. So what I really focus on is not just the behavior, not just the action, but the mindset behind it. Because every action, every behavior has a mindset behind it. Every emotion has a mindset behind it. So I would say the most important pillar that I focus on, no matter what challenge anybody comes to me with, is that mindset. That is so important. And the thing is, we tend to overlook mindset so much. When we think about mindset, we think of, the little foo-foo type, oh, that's fairy tale, and, but your mind is a serious thing.
A lot of people, when they hear that too, they might say like, I don't need the mindset. Like, I know that if I want to lose weight, I got to eat the right things. I got to go work out. If I want to write the book, I just got to start writing the 100 words a day or whatever it is. But then the days come where you don't want to do it and you don't feel like it. Right. And you talk a lot about self-motivation, which I want to get into a little bit afterwards. But how do you address and help people to cultivate that mindset piece? Because again, that's the piece that a lot of people might even already feel they have. Like, I remember when I was 21, I'm 29 now. When I was 21, my mindset was very different than it is now. It was a mindset of lack. It was a mindset of blaming. It was a mindset of other people should be doing what I'm doing. Like, it was a cocky, sales oriented mindset, but I was self-focused, right? So I, at that time, would have said, I've got the mindset. I'm good. Just show me what to do. So how do you help people to cultivate that right mindset?
When you look at mindset, I like to operate off the premise. I always say that you cannot change. Well, no, you cannot intentionally change what you don't know, because you still can change. It could be negative change. In other words, if you come to me to say, hey, I need to lose weight, or I need to write my book, but I just can't seem to stop procrastinating. I keep overthinking, right? What I first focus on is building that self-awareness. Okay, what is the problem? Exactly. And oftentimes, what people initially identify as being the problem is not really the problem. It's the effect. It's not the cause. So, like, procrastination is not a cause. That's an effect. What's the reason? What's the cause of the procrastination?
Mm.
You see, if you have a fear of public speaking, the fear is not the problem. What's the cause of the fear? You have to get to the root cause of the problem. So one of the first things I do with persons is I identify the perceived surface problem, which is what most people know, the perceived surface problem. I gotta write it down like that. The
Yeah.
perceived surface problem. And then we break that down into layers. So I have certain exercises to where I get to the root cause of the problem. So we build awareness by getting to the root cause of the problem first and foremost, because that's what we spend our coaching sessions on, the root cause.
Oh, I love that. So the PSP, the perceived surface problem, is what many of us already know exists, right? When you say,
Yeah.
hey, what's the reason why you're looking to work with me? And also, a lot of people who aren't ready to work with someone, like I wasn't ready to work with someone until I'd already transformed my life in a positive way. And then I was like, I want to work with a coach to help me take this to the next level. A lot of people, again, aren't even aware that they have the quote unquote problem or this thing that is stopping them from reaching that next form, whether it's in their career or their personal body. So, yes, when you ask yourself the question, why am I stuck in this cycle? Why am I going from one bad relationship to another unhealthy relationship? Why am I job hopping from one place to another place, always blaming the manager, always blaming the boss, the company, rather than looking inward and saying, what can I do differently? So, okay, so you've identified the perceived problem. Now it's time to dive into the root. Is there a specific question that you like to ask people to help them to dig deep and discover what is the root of this? And maybe even, because I'm going to kind of load this real quick because I want to hear about your story too, in terms of you stopped smoking after 18 years.
Yeah.
Like, you're a young dude. So you smoked for a good portion of your life. And
Yeah.
then you didn't. All of a sudden, you weren't a smoker anymore. You're a non-smoker, right? Your
Yeah.
identity shifted. So what was your perceived surface problem? And how did you really get to the root of that in order to change the behavior?
So you actually said the answer in your question, but I'll get to that afterwards. I don't even think you realized that.
I definitely didn't, but I'd love to hear you say it.
So I started off. I just turned 41 a couple 2 weeks ago, right?
Wow, congrats, brother. You look
Just
super young, man. And 41 is super
thank you.
young, but I thought you were younger than that.
Well, that's always a good thing, eh?
Yes.
So I started smoking as soon as I got out of high school in 2000. I graduated high school in 2000, and I started, an extreme partying, reckless, wild lifestyle. It was like, when you let the horses out the gate at a horse race and they just go. That was me when I left high school. I was into everything, smoking, drinking, women, you name it, right? That turned into a serious addiction of me smoking up to 15 times every day, between 10 and 15 times every day, 7 days a week for about 18 years, right? And as far as I was concerned, I couldn't survive without smoking. It was marijuana, by the way.
Yep.
And that had me gone, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I actually met a woman who didn't want me to smoke, who wanted me to quit smoking. So I met a woman, we started dating, and when it came down to marriage talk and we wanted to get married, she wanted me to quit smoking before we got married.
Mm.
As far as I was concerned, I love her. Yeah, let's go. I can do it.
Yeah.
So I said the night before the wedding was my official last day of smoking ceremony. you know, Quit that day before the wedding. I spent the first year of our marriage, fiending for something to smoke. You talk about withdrawal symptoms.
Oh, yeah.
It was so serious that even if I passed someone who was smoking, I would stop just to inhale it for a while.
Yes.
you know? And after a year, I went to her and I was like, sweetie, I can't do this. I gotta smoke. I can't do this. After a year, so I started smoking again after a year, right? And it wasn't, and I'm going to get back to why that didn't work, right? It wasn't until our daughter started getting a little bit older, and I started looking at, okay, how am I going to quit smoking now? I know it was a habit because at this point I had just realized that it was an addiction. I thought it was just just something I did, but I had just realized that my smoking was an addiction, and I realized why it didn't work before is because I had the wrong reason for quitting. I quit initially because of I wanted to please my then fiance, who became my wife. But it wasn't because I actually wanted to quit. I didn't have a strong enough reason to quit, so I went right back to the habit, right, or to the addiction. When I actually quit, it happened in 2018. So that's the 18 years there, from 2000 to 2018. So when I supposedly quit before was within that 18 years. I don't count that as quitting because I didn't quit.
Yeah.
When I actually quit, I remember it was a Tuesday morning and I was just at a low point. I was thinking, financially, my business, smoking was getting away, my marriage, it was causing problems. And I couldn't think of how am I going to tell my daughter, you don't smoke, but daddy's smoking. So it just was a lot going on. So that's when I decided to rededicate my life to Christ. And I changed a lot of things about my life. And smoking was one of them. I literally, all of the smoke I had that day, I flushed it down the toilet and I never looked back from that day. And I made the decision that this is it. And the only difference between those two scenarios, the main difference between those two scenarios is I had a strong enough why, a strong enough reason. And I always say a strong enough reason will always overpower any excuse and any obstacle. Once you have a big enough reason. It's like it's like saying you can't stay consistent with exercise and nutrition. But if you go to the doctor and the doctor says if you don't stay consistent with your exercise, you will die shortly. I bet you that person will stay consistent, all because they had a strong enough reason to.
Yes. Out of
Your
necessity.
reason is so important. Oh yeah, your reason for doing anything. You should. People need to put more focus on why. Why am I trying to stay healthy? Why am I opening a business? Why am I writing this book? Why am I coming on this broadcast? Like what's the reason? Your reason will determine your success, your consistency in whatever you're doing.
So let me ask you about that because, and I'm really curious to know this. Do you believe the day before you got married, right? Before you went on this year-long journey of this struggle of, walking by the person smoking, you wanted it. It's this idea of, I want to smoke. I want to smoke. You're always thinking about it, right? And I relate, believe me, I understand. While the people say, oh, marijuana, it's not a physical addiction. It's not like these other drugs. There is very much an addiction there, whether it's physical or whatever you want to call it. You're thinking about it, you want it, even after 6 months, you still want it, right? And it's just like anything else. So let me ask you, do you believe it was possible for you the day before you got married to find a reason compelling enough to where you could have stopped smoking marijuana forever that day versus you rededicating your life to Christ, right? Which I want to talk about the correlation between you stopping smoking and that, because it's almost like that took the place of the smoking, right? It's almost like you swapped smoking for your dedication to a higher being or a higher entity or spirituality. So do you believe that, and I'll ask it in this way, do you believe it's possible to find a strong enough reason whenever you want to change a behavior? Or does it take that defining moment of, I can't do this anymore, I must change? Like when the doctor says you must become healthy. Is it possible for someone to find a strong enough reason before that ultimatum?
Definitely. I like to say we have a mind and brain, but we're not our mind and brain, which means we have the ability to control it instead of letting it control us, or instead of letting them control us, right? So you can literally decide, it's literally a decision. Now, a lot of people would say making a decision is not that easy, right?
Mm.
It's simple. It may be difficult at times, but it's simple. A decision means, hey, this is it. I am not going to do this anymore, or I will start doing this from now on. A decision is this is how it's going to be going forward. You can literally make a decision and stick to it at any point in time in your life, whether you're at the end of your rope or not. Right? So it's possible.
Okay.
Yes. Now, where a lot of people have a problem with it is you would think you made a decision. You would say, hey, I am going to do this, or I am going to stop this. You would say it, but it wouldn't necessarily be a decision you've made. It would be a want, but not a decision. You would always know when you've made a decision. A decision means there's no turning back. That's a decision. When I decided I wanted to quit the night before the wedding, I thought I had made the decision. But what I was really doing was pleasing my wife. I didn't decide internally that I am going to stop. I was saying I had all intentions of stopping. But having an intention is not a decision. You see?
Yes.
Now, and even to get back around to because I just remember now when I said you gave the answer in your question. One of the main things I would say, if you want to quit an addiction, if you want to quit a habit, is to change your self-identity. I identified myself as being a smoker. It was who I was. I am a smoker. You asked me, like, I'm a smoker, that's me. But when I changed that into I wasn't a smoker, smoking is just a bad habit or an addiction I had, then it became an activity that I could break. When you differentiate between a self-identity and a habit, it becomes easier to break that habit.
Wow. Are they always intertwined? When it comes to a habit, is there always a piece of our self-identity that's attached to that habit, good or bad?
Normally, and it's normally subconscious. So if you would hear people say, "Well, I'm a procrastinator." No, you're not a procrastinator. Procrastination is just a habit you have. When you self-identify with an action or an activity or habit, what happens is, in order for you to change, you have to change yourself. It's much easier to change an activity than it is to change a person.
Mm, yes.
So in order so in order for me to stop being a smoker, I have to change who Nathan Sweeting is. Nathan Sweeting is a smoker. So if I want to change that, Nathan Sweeting has to stop being a smoker and start being something else. That's changing who I am, who I perceive myself to be.
So who did you become after you were no longer a smoker? Who were you then?
I was just Nathan Sweeting, a child of God.
A child of God.
Child of God. Nathan Sweeting, child of God. And that covers every area of my life. So me as an entrepreneur, as a coach, as a father, husband, as a, everything falls under me as the child of God. That's my umbrella I operate under. So I must display God in whatever I do.
Wow. That's powerful,
Yeah.
brother. That's a powerful shift. Very much more empowering to be a child of God and to espouse God in everything you do than to be Nathan Sweeting, the smoker, right? That's
Yeah.
a very different
Yeah.
identity. Did you
Much.
consciously know that you were shifting your identity, or did you just at that moment in time say, while I'm going to stop smoking, I've made the decision, I'm done. I'm going to pick this up instead and dedicate my life to Christ? Like, was that a conscious decision, or did it just kind of happen in that way?
Well, sort of both. I didn't realize the whole self identity versus habit thing until I started really getting into life coaching and really studying and helping people with their addictions and habits. And I realized, hey, this is a shift I made. So I was able to name it really and put a term to it. But what I call habit changing 101, there's a number of steps I help with when it comes to habits. But habit changing 101, one of the steps is you don't just get rid of a habit, you replace it. So I replaced smoking, excessive drinking. I mean, I still have my little drink every now and again. I haven't stopped drinking, but I used to get drunk. I mean, a couple of days. I was a functioning alcoholic
Mm-hmm.
back then, you know.
Yes.
Um, but I believe in, if you're going to break a habit, you need to replace it with another habit. But the difference is the habit you replace it with is a more empowering habit. So
Okay.
I used to listen to, I started to listen to a lot of Miles Monroe, Dr. Miles Monroe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because he's
He's great.
world renowned preacher, and right from here, from our home in the Bahamas.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah,
And
he's amazing.
yeah, yeah, he's right from here in Bahamas. In Bahamas. Of course, he passed away some years ago.
Yeah.
But I used to listen to. I just started listening to him in 2018 when I decided to make the switch. As a matter of fact, he was one of the main reasons why I decided to make the switch. Because when I realized that, hey, this is an addiction, this is hindering my marriage. I don't know how I'm going to explain this to my daughter, and I just started thinking and thinking, okay, how am I going to quit? How am I going to quit? I tried before, it didn't work, and I started researching how to quit smoking, how to transform your life, and I came across one of his videos. Keep in mind now, he lives in Nassau, Bahamas.
Mm.
He has his church in Nassau, Bahamas, which is where I live, but I had never heard him in person before.
Yeah.
I only heard him on YouTube. And when I heard him, I can't remember what the message was, but it was more along the lines of, who are you?
Mm.
Who are you? Why are you here? What's your purpose? What's your destiny? All that. And I just started studying Dr. Matt Monroe, studying him. I started listening to his sermons. His sermons were like an hour long.
Oh
I
yeah.
started listening to 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. And I realized that I have more to offer this world than I am offering it now. I have more to offer myself and my family. And smoking is getting in the way of that.
Mm.
So, and I realized the more I listened to him and the more I started studying, the less I had my focus on smoking. And that's when I realized, hey, there's something to replacing one thing with the next. So I
Yes.
got real intentional with it. So I did a list. TR, something else I teach my clients. TR. One side, All of the things, the habits, the mindsets, the behaviors I need to get rid of. On the
Mm.
next side, what am I going to replace these with? And I just took off from there.
Wow. You said so many really, really important things throughout that. Okay. Because our story is very different, but similar in the fact that you found Miles Monroe. I personally found Tony Robbins. So he
Ah,
became my guy and he's still alive. So I went to see him and I never met him, but I went to his
nice.
events and I've listened to everything on YouTube you can find of him. And that inspired me to want to help other people to make the same changes I made. And here you are, you find Miles Monroe, you begin your business. You have two amazing books with, by the way, really great covers, which are right behind you. So for the people watching,
Thank you.
Nathan's books are right behind him. There's going to be
Yeah.
links in the description for Nathan's books, both of them, and we'll talk about that. But you found someone who became an influence for you, and that helped you to replace that habit of smoking with something that
Yeah.
was more empowering. And I love that idea of the teacher. I don't want people listening to sleep on that idea. Like right now, guys, even if right now you pause the conversation, I won't be upset, right? Or wait till the end of it and grab a piece of paper, write out a quick T chart and do this. Like if you're listening to this, then it's very likely you're one of two people. One, you're a high achiever already and you want to get better, meaning there's probably a habit you can replace with something even better. Or you are someone who's literally saying, I want to master my mind. I want to get control of my life. I want to create a goal and go after it. And in order to do that, I'm going to have to replace this habit of being late to work, or this habit of getting into fights with my significant other, or this habit of eating at 9 p.m. every single night and then going to bed at 10. Like we all have this one thing that we can replace with something that is more empowering. So I'm just curious, and this is why I asked this next question, Nathan. Aside from you starting your business and writing your books and coaching, like this transition of no longer smoking marijuana, I'm just curious, how else did your life change when you were no longer smoking weed? Like, were there any other differences, or was it really more symbolic than physical? Like, tell me about that. Was there anything else that improved or was better about life?
Yeah, I started really, I call it, I started really seeing life. Because keep in mind now, I used to smoke up to 15 times, and what that entailed was I was high 24 hours a day. I would wake up in the middle of the night, smoke. Soon as I wake up in the morning, smoke.
Mm,
Before and after taking a shower, smoke. Before and after every meal, smoke. Smoking came before and after every activity I did, which means there was never a time when I was not high. I didn't know what it felt like to not be high. you know?
yeah.
And when I really quit, and even a year that I supposedly quit, I knew what it was like to not be high, but my mind was still focused on it. So even though I wasn't physically high, I still was focused on being high. But when I actually quit, it was like it was like a veil got lifted off, and like this is what the world looks like without smoking, like without thinking about it, without feeling for it, without like the world just looked a lot clearer.
Yes.
It's like if you go somewhere where there's a lot of fog, you got a lot, you got a lot of exhaust and a lot of fog around, but then you go on the next side and there's just clarity. There's no fog. You could see for yards and miles away. That's how I felt. I was moving faster. I was thinking clearer. I was more focused. I was more creative. Like ideas started coming to me. I was a better husband. It just made everything so much more clearer.
Wow.
And I thought I was fine while I was smoking because I was still, working. I was still doing everything, being a father. But I started doing everything on a different level when I took that out of my life.
Mm, yes.
You
That's
know?
great. Just again, brother, like you've heard this many times, especially back in 2018 when you stopped, but congratulations on making
Thank
that
you.
shift and doing what you do now. Because if you didn't make that decision, then you wouldn't be on this show right now. You wouldn't have your two
No.
books behind you. Like, just think about how old's your daughter? How old's Nala now?
She's 9.
Amazing. Like, just think about what
Yeah.
Nala thinks when she sees her dad speaking internationally, when she sees the books that you've written that she'll have even after you're gone, she'll have them. Your grandkids will have them. Like, they're going to be like, look at our great, 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 great grandfather who wrote these books about changing her life. Like, just think about how that change the arc of your legacy as a human being and how many people are going to reach, rather than, hey, our great grandfather smoked weed every day 24/7. Like it's a
Yeah.
big difference. And the reason I say that isn't to be funny, because it's funny, it's comical, but at the same time it's very real, because the question that those listening can ask is, what legacy am I creating right now? What's the generational story that I'm creating? Because you're not creating a story, you're simply picking up the story where the person before you left it off, right? Your father,
Yeah.
grandfather, whatever it might be. So just congratulations on that. I want to ask you some more. So you also
Definitely.
overcame
Thank you.
your fear of public speaking, right?
Yes.
Now that's very important if you want to be a public speaker, right? Otherwise, you're going to be
Mhm.
on a podcast, you're going to be nervous, you're going to be fidgeting
Yeah.
around, you're going to be in front of people, not know what to say, what to do. So, what did you do? Because in order to do what you do now, you had to acquire many different skills. You had to learn how to write, you had to learn how to market, you had to learn how to speak, you had to learn how technology works to be on podcasts, and all this different stuff, right? And
Mhm.
leading a team, all that stuff. So, what did you do professionally before NLS Global, before you became a speaker coach? What were you doing professionally during that time?
I did so much. I have a career in banking. I was in banking from about 2002 or 1 until about 2010. 2010, I took over my father's driving school, so I was a driving instructor
Mm.
for a couple of years. I also own a landscaping company. All this is me trying to find my way. All of this. All of these were me experimenting. Landscaping company. I really started to find my calling when I joined my brother in Elite Wellness Solutions, where we first started off writing health and fitness programs for individual clients, and then we moved to designing and managing corporate wellness programs for companies, mainly primarily here in the Bahamas. And it was, and the thing is, this is where the public speaking came into play. In these corporate wellness programs, it involved us doing like biometric screenings, group coaching, group fitness sessions, on-site coaching, and then workshops and seminars on health and wellness. I was primarily responsible for facilitating all of the most of the workshops and the seminars, like going out and speaking. And I wasn't necessarily used to speaking in front of a crowd like that, but I was very nervous. And the more I did it, I started to hate the fact that I was so scared of it. Every time I would, go to speak to at a event, I would start shivering, shaking, sweating, voice trembling. Like, it was very obvious that I was afraid.
Mm.
Very obvious. There was no hiding it. And I see people used to look at me like, "Oh my goodness, he's so scared." Like, I saw the expressions on people's face, like they felt bad for me because I was so scared.
Oh yeah.
And it was something I hated. I hated, just like how I hated having that addiction. I hated having the fear. I just don't like being in control of myself.
Yeah.
Which is one of the focus on self mastery, right?
Yes.
And I tried to, the more you do it, the more you get used to it. But no, that didn't work.
Mhm.
Right? I just kept doing it, and I just kept being scared. So the main thing I would say that led to me getting over that fear of public speaking was, one, authenticity, being myself.
Who were you
When
before? Who were you before you became
so
yourself?
I was this guy. Good afternoon. How is everyone doing today? I hope, like, I used to speak sort of proper, and I used to say what I thought people wanted to hear. I never used to, crack joke, because I'm a person I like to crack jokes, and I'm very informal, very informal.
Yeah.
But when I went to speak on a stage, I would be very formal, like, good afternoon, very proper, but that's not me.
Yeah.
I think it was one time I just wasn't into it. I just wasn't into putting up a front anymore. And I just spoke my mind at a presentation. I cracked my jokes and I say, "Hey, whatever, if you'll accept me, you'll accept me, whatever." And I got such a beautiful response from the audience when I did that.
Mhm.
I was like, "Oh, this is how it feels."
Yes.
From that day on, I just, like, when I go in the front of a crowd, whether it be 200 people or 2,000 people, literally how I'm speaking to you, I speak to them. How's everyone doing? Y'all all right? Listen, man, I had such a hard day today. Y'all even want to know. And that's how I speak into the crowd.
Yeah.
I learned that when you're yourself, the more you can be yourself, your unique, authentic self, the more people will accept you, support you, follow you, and listen to you and learn from you. One, it takes your focus off of putting up a front and trying to please people.
Yep.
Two, it puts your focus on your message and your mission, what you're doing. You're free to be yourself now, so you're free to actually impact more people and better in a better way. So that was one of the main things I did to get over my fear of public speaking. I just decided to be more of myself, display more of my personality into it, and it worked.
Wow. And that's led you to what you do now. A big part of what you do now is communicating to many people at once.
Yeah. So once I started to get over that, I started to not just so that was your question. So I started to not only get over the fear of it, I started to realize, hey, this is kind of fun. I actually like this. Like I like holding a microphone in my hand,
Yeah.
speaking to a crowd of people. I love the interaction I get from a crowd. I always say I would much rather speak to a crowd of people than to speak to one person.
Same. Me too. Yeah.
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 I feel much more comfortable on a stage with thousands of people watching me than I feel on a
Energy.
one-on-one conversation.
Yes. It's energy, brother. It's all about
Yes,
energy.
I love that energy. And I decided, well, so when I got over the fear, I started to like it. I developed a passion for it. So I was like, if I'm so passionate about this, why not turn it into a career?
Yeah.
So that's how my public speaking career took off. I just decided to turn it into a career.
That's
So I
amazing.
love it. I love it.
There's two things that really stick out from that story to me is that you didn't just say, I have a fear of speaking. You didn't just go on the stage and you said, oh, wow, I'm quivering. People are giving me that look of feeling bad for me. You didn't just get that response and stop. You continued even in the face of that fear, right? You said, well, maybe I'll get better. You didn't wait until you no longer had that fear in order to begin. You started before you were ready, right? I think that's a really important principle there. And also you're that becoming more authentic, right? Which you noticed when you did crack that joke and you got an amazing response, a response that was better than you being proper and trying to even like when I started speaking, when I started delivering trainings, I was trying to be like other people that I watched. I was trying to be like a Tony Robbins. I was trying to be like a Jim Rohn, who was another influence of mine. I was trying to be like these other people. And it worked to an extent, but it wasn't me, right? I wasn't happy with myself nearly as much as I am now that I am speaking authentically in front of a group of people. Like if you had to give advice, because that idea of just being yourself, that's powerful with public speaking. That's powerful with in the relationship world. That's powerful when growing your career. That's powerful for anyone. If you had to give one piece of advice, that obviously it's going to be a general piece of advice because it has to fit many different molds. But how can someone become more authentic? How can someone become more of themselves and show up more authentically?
One primary thing, get over your fear of other people's opinions. This is something I also learned from Dr. Miles Monroe. Dr. Miles Monroe said in one of his sermons, he said, you need to learn how to be dangerous. He said, this is what makes him so dangerous. I don't know if this is exact wording, but not being so scared of what other people think of you. Don't fear other people's opinions. You can't control what people say, what people think, how people feel, how people react to you or respond to you, right? He said, if you want to be dangerous, which is why he's so dangerous, he operates on the premise that he does what he needs to do, despite what other people are going to say about it. And when I heard him say that, listen, that was a life changer for me. I started realizing that we spend so much time. Should I post this? I don't know what people are going to say. If I pick up a microphone, I don't know if I should say this. This might offend. I mean, you don't be offensive, mind you. But, are people going to laugh? Are they going to talk about me behind my back? We are so scared of what other people are going to think and say about us that it prevents us from taking action, from pursuing our dreams, from taking risks, from stepping outside of our comfort zone, from being ourselves. If you really want to be yourself, get over the fear of other people's opinions of you. When you
Hmm,
share, and this is something I'm teaching my 9-year-old daughter now. Everything I teach my clients, I teach her.
that's
Everything.
beautiful.
And I tell her this. I tell her everything I teach my clients and the classes I teach her from she is this young. So I say, time as you get my age, you're going to be an expert. Right?
That's
But
great.
it's just, don't be scared. Don't be scared. When you could get over that fear, you'll be able to step on any stage. You'll be able to open any business, write any book, anything. I I always say there's no one is scared of public speaking. You know how people say the biggest fear is public speaking. No one has a fear of public speaking. People fear rejection.
Mm,
People fear what might happen if they mess up.
yeah.
That's what they really fear. If there was a guarantee you can step on a stage, 10,000 people, if there's a guarantee that everyone would love you, you would kill it, everything you say would be on point. If there was a guarantee, you wouldn't be scared to go out there.
Yeah.
What you're really scared of is that fear that something is going to go wrong and you're going to look bad. People are going to tease you. It's going to go on social media. That's what we really fear. No one fears public speaking. People
It's true.
fear the rejection that might come with it.
And
But
that's
once you can,
very similar to most fears that people have is how are other people going to react? What are other people going to think of me? The fear is generally what others will think, do, feel, and we create in our mind a picture that's much bigger than what reality is at the same
Mhm.
time. So that's great advice. And I didn't know what you were going to say to that, but I'm blown away by your answer because you're absolutely right. So I appreciate you going
Thank you.
into that. So let me ask
Thank
you
you.
because obviously we could talk forever on how to do that alone, that one thing. So a lot of people have really enjoyed this conversation. They're in the process of changing their behaviors by starting with their thoughts, which lead to their emotions, right? So you have a one-on-one coaching program where you do
Yes.
dive deep into these principles with people, and you also speak with corporations. So you've got several different audiences here. So, what does it look like for someone who is listening who says, I'm really connecting with Nathan? He seems like a really great dude. I want to look further into how he can help me to really kickstart and change those behaviors faster or help me to determine what are those behaviors that are holding me back. What does it look like to work with you one on one, Nathan? What's your program look like?
Well, once you go to it starts on my website, which is nls-global.com, and you go there to the coaching page to register. You can either join the coaching program right there, and we jump on a call afterwards, or we can jump on a call before a consultation, and then you join the program afterwards. Once we join the program, we first identify, okay, what's the problem, what challenges are you having in life in the different areas. From there we look at, okay, what are the root causes of these problems. From there we develop a system, a plan. So I believe in, like, you don't necessarily need discipline, but you need habits and systems.
Mm,
All right. So we look at, okay, what systems do we need to put into place? What habits do we need to break and form? And we literally spend our coaching sessions focusing on developing the systems, breaking old habits and forming new habits, and developing the mindset behind that. So I meet with my clients on a weekly basis. Generally, so we meet once a week, the same time every week. Let's say like every Monday or Tuesday, whatever, once a week. My coaching program spans for a minimum of 3 months. For some clients, have been coaching with me for a year and a half now. Because once person starts seeing results, they want to keep building the momentum,
yes.
right? So a minimum of 3 months, and you can coach with me for as long as you want. Literally, it's on a weekly basis. Every session, we develop action plans for you to execute for that week until we meet again the following week. Once we meet again, we go over what happened in the previous week, troubleshoot what we need to troubleshoot, change what we need to change, revisit whatever we need to revisit, and we move on to the next week. I like to say, with life, there's nothing is written in stone. So if this session today, we have a coaching session today, and we just develop an action plan for you to write your book, lose 50 pounds, whatever. And we see when we meet again in a week that, hey, this was the result of that. This worked, but this need tweaking. We can literally throw out the entire plan and start from scratch at any point in time. Or we could just alter the plan a little bit. But my coaching program is completely customized. So it's based on what you need. We could stay on the same path for 3 months, or we could change up our path every week. It depends on what you need, what works and what doesn't work. But that's
Yeah.
that's the beauty of one-on-one coaching. You get to decide what works, what doesn't work, and you get to troubleshoot and move as you go.
Yes. It's personalized. It's not like a cookie
Oh
cutter
yeah.
approach that you do with
Mm-mm.
every person. Like yeah. So you have some ideas of you're going to go over their wins. You're going to talk about what's working. You're going to troubleshoot, like you said. But for every person, there's a different plan that you help them
Mm-hmm.
to create. And let me tell you guys, if you haven't worked with a coach before, you got to work with the right person. And Nathan, you have an electricity to you. You have this very special energy and very, very special positivity where that alone can help someone. Like just that
Yeah.
energy and being around that for you are the people you spend time with, right? So if
Yeah.
Nathan's in your circle, you're going to share in that electricity. But if you haven't worked with a coach yet, you might be wondering, like, should I work with one? What's going to happen? You always move faster working with
Mm-hmm.
a great coach. You always move faster, but not just move faster, but you're always able to see things that you might not have been able to see yourself. So I love that. So people can start that process to connect with you and have that conversation at your website, which is
Yes. Gosh.
nls-global.com.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Do you
That's
hang
where you
out
find me.
anywhere specifically on social media? Like, are you more on one platform than another if people want to follow you and see what you're up to?
I'm on several platforms, primarily Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube, all as Nathan L. Sweeting. I'm on Facebook. It's Mind Mastery with NLS on Facebook. And I'm
Okay.
also on Twitter and TikTok as well. You can find all of those links on my website as well, actually.
Awesome. Okay, so guys, the main place you want to go is Nathan's
Yeah,
website. You can find his books there as well, which we didn't even dive into the
exactly.
books, but you can find them there. We talked a lot about changing behaviors, right? So Nathan, this has been a really awesome conversation, brother. I didn't know what to expect when it came to self-mastery, but I love the direction we went, and I know that it was for sure very helpful for a lot of people. So it was great
Definitely.
to have this chat with you, and thanks for joining, man, all the way from the Bahamas.
And thanks for having me. This is a real nice broadcast. I love this. And I love what you're doing. You're empowering people and you're changing the world. Keep doing what you're doing. I know
Thank you,
your
brother.
audience is benefiting a lot from the show because I'm benefiting from the show.
Aw, well, I appreciate you saying that,
So
man. Thank you so much.
awesome. My pleasure, bro.
Whether you've got a behavior you know you want to change, whether you're unsure of what that behavior is, whether you're thinking about fast tracking and working with somebody and taking it to that next level, or maybe you just don't know what the next step is. I hope that you got something out of this conversation with Nathan because we talked about a lot. We talked about how your thoughts lead to emotions, which lead to your behaviors. We talked about how you don't need discipline. I love that. You don't need discipline. You just need great habits. You need great systems in place. That way, when you wake up, you don't need to be like, yes, I'm ready to go to the gym. I'm ready to put together this financial plan. You just say, this is something that I do. Right? I go to the gym. It's part of my identity. It's part of who I am. So throughout this last 50 minutes or so, we covered a lot of different things. So if you did take something out of this conversation, please share this show with just one other person. You're the reason the show has grown the way that it has over the last few years. And over the last 6 months, we've grown more than we have in the entire 2 years because of you, because you're the best part of the Be Better team, which allows us to keep going and allows us to get great people like Nathan Sweeting on the show. And if you want to follow Nathan, links are in the description to his website. And if you're listening, it's nls-global.com. Go check them out. Thanks so much for watching and listening. And until we talk again next time, continue to be better.